If you found this video enjoyable, please leave a like and hell, even subscribe if you want to. It only takes 2 clicks, and push that notification bell just to get the messages for my videos. That would be greatly appreciated. So sometimes I think of pretty dumb ideas for YouTube videos, and sometimes I don't fulfill those ideas, but in this scenario, I think I have a pretty interesting one for you guys. Within JoJo's, there is a multiverse, an infinite number of possibilities, and infinite number of realities. And it got me thinking, technically, within one of these realities is a Part 4-like universe where a Toru-like character should exist with a Wonder View type of stand. Probably the only major difference here being that Toru in this scenario probably isn't a rock human, a majority of the time, since, you know, infinite number of realities. So this video is going to kind of be 2 things, a what if / power scale, because if it was just pure naturally power scaling, yeah, I probably would say Wonder Review would just straight up clap, but I want to have fun here and make like a DLC pack to Part 4. So I'm visualizing this hypothetical fight to happen probably after Kira's death and right before Jotaro leaves Morioh, and the main Morioh group consisting of the boys: Josuke, Okuyasu, Koichi, Rohan, and Jotaro. Toru is most likely still working in Part 4's hospital at the time, and is most likely doing something sketchy underneath the table illegally, I'm assuming, in this timeline, and possibly due to the death of a serial killer in this small town, probably feels threatened. There is some type of stand group, more or less, in this town doing some type of heroic things, and if Toru is doing something sketchy, he might feel a bit pressured. And of course, in Part 4, Josuke was in said hospital at a time, so that means to a certain degree, Toru, through probably a lot of people and information going around, knows that Josuke was at that hospital. And if some type of scenario were to occur where, I don't know, Josuke's mom shows up for a health checkup and Wonder View, disguised as the head doctor, were to, I don't know, check up on her or do a health examination on her, I don't know, spills the beans that she's Josuke's mom, and boom, I don't know, the Toru versus Morioh gang fight happens, beginning here in this scenario, hypothetically speaking. To almost mirror the Wonder View storyline, very similar to when Mitsuba brought the image of the head doctor or / the energy of the head doctor or Wonder View into the Higashikata household, this would almost play out very similar to Josuke's mom doing the same thing in this hypothetical scenario. With her possibly experiencing calamity in real time, she'd most likely warn or tell Josuke that something weird is happening. Now, Josuke is an experienced stand user and probably off the cuff would probably figure out that it is most likely a stand user nearby doing these powers or this kind of weird shit to his mom. Unknowing this, Josuke has now activated the ability against himself. Now I'm going to explain something real quick. From right here, from this point beyond, if Josuke dies or any of the gang fights Wonder View one-on-one, it's over. Bar none, no debate. It's over. Basically, Wonder View can do some heavy damage to a person once the ability has been activated. I have explained this multiple times in several different videos, so if you want to watch one of those for a more in-depth explanation, go right ahead after watching this. In an optimal scenario where Josuke doesn't try to pursue it any harder than he probably already has at the beginning of this scenario, he should be fine. He'll probably take some damage, maybe his mom is injured or something, and he runs away. That is the optimal scenario. If he tries any harder, I'm gonna be honest, it's game over. And if he is crippled in the first act, nobody else is living. I'm just flat out stating that now. So there's possibly a number of timelines where if Toru existed and wanted to fight the Morioh crew, it's game over. No debate, just saying that now. Most likely in this scenario, if optimal, he probably goes to Jotaro, as he probably sees his nephew, weirdly to say, as probably the most chief authority in town and, you know, the strongest stand user in Morioh, as somewhere to hide. With that now in play, the group is now officially called in. Now here comes the power scaling. Now looking at everybody's stands here, they kind of do stand somewhat of a chance if working together, and we actually do know the Morioh crew does, you know, actively do combo attacks and actually works together like a team, which is pretty rare in JoJo's, mind you. Araki tries to keep a philosophy of stand fights one-on-one sometimes, just depends on the scenario. So looking at Echo's Act 3, we know his primary ability is to freeze something or of course put weight onto something so it stops moving. The farther away it's from Echo's Act 3, the lighter it is, the closer it is, the heavier it gets, but on bar minimum, it's anywhere from 40 to 50 kilograms of weight that's on top of any object that he he places Act 3 freeze on. Rohan and Heaven's Door. Now, this is probably going to be the most interesting for some people because a lot of people like to hype up Rohan and Heaven's Door. Heaven's Door can read you like a book, seeing your memory, the things you've done, the things you've done throughout your whole lifetime, and the small details about you. But most notably about it is that Heaven's Door has the ability to write in commands about you. This ability is primarily used to rewrite memories, alter past events within the person's mind, and just small things about the person in themselves. But in a weird vagueness, can also write in commands to do things that you are forced to do. For example, Koichi once asked Rohan to speak Italian to go to part 5 in Morioh Golden to meet Giorno. Apparently he can just do this. He can just literally give the ability to make people speak Italian, or in a more dramatic case, make Josuke fly backwards, even though Josuke didn't want to fly backwards, but he just did, at pretty tremendous force, by the way, in specific. With this vagueness in mind, I guess technically Heaven's Door has the ability to make people make themselves manipulate their own bodies to a certain degree. It's pretty vague and there's kind of no limits to it. Maybe it just depends on how you view it. But to be totally honest, I don't see Rohan being that useful against one review in and of himself, but for everybody else, yeah, pretty powerful. The Hand, Okuyasu's stand. Simple to explain, Okuyasu waves his left hand to scrape away anything from existence, to the point where an abstract concept like space will literally just disappear if Okuyasu wills. Very, very powerful stand. Downside is, Okuyasu is written to be a dumbass, in universe is explained to be stupid, and Araki himself explained one time in an interview / stand stat guide that, Okuyasu was written to be an idiot with an extremely powerful ability. Josuke and Crazy Diamond. Now, of course, in this scenario, restoration is basically healing for the group. Basically, Crazy Diamond has the ability to make an object or a living organism revert to a previous state in their history. And in certain scenarios, if fast enough, can even prevent death itself. So it's extremely powerful and extremely useful in this scenario, like I said previously. And of course, for last, Jotaro Kujo's Star Platinum, the world. What have I not said about this stand? Fast as light, super strong, has the ability, within part 4 at least, at a maximum of time stop for 2 seconds. And by far in character is probably the most stand experienced in terms of combat and the most intelligent. Side note too, everybody should scale around Star Platinum with its near light speed feats. So everybody is pretty fast. And in terms of strength, everybody should be genuinely around the same level a little bit. So there you go. Now with the group gathered and now in the presence of Jotaro, what is their next plan of maneuver? Josuke is now explaining to them about a stand that can do a ridiculous amount of damage in a very short amount of time and does not know where it's coming from. In a worst case scenario, this is probably where Josuke spills the beans, and I'm going to be honest, the Calamity of Wonder Review activates probably and end up, defeating the entire group. And it makes sense. Rohan can't get close to Wonder Review or the head doctor, putting Rohan at the top of the list of Calamity, with Koichi and Okuyasu soon to follow because, of course, one's stand ability needs him to get actually closer for effectiveness, and one's a complete idiot, leaving both Josuke and Jotaro probably last in the list, but probably even then they would still succumb to Calamity. Yes, I already know, but what about time stop? Alright, I'm gonna explain this and I hope I don't get you guys confused, but in a sense of the way, Calamity is just another word for fate, or is fate but vice versa, and works in tandem with JoJo's gravity. These three concepts, at least within JoJo's, is kind of very physical and can actually be measured, and with that being said, technically scale above time itself, as there is some type of logic and or calamity during time stop. Now, what happens to time stop during that is up to your interpretation. Something could happen within time stop that Jotaro doesn't see, or right afterwards that Jotaro just didn't predict during time stop beforehand, so it's up to you, but time stop would be affected by calamity in some type of way. Now, in this scenario, they would probably end up losing, definitely, but since I want the boys to at least come out living, I'm probably going to assume that either Rohan, Koichi, or Jotaro probably figures it out right before Josuke spills everything about what he knows. It doesn't seem too out of character for these experienced stand users to figure this out. As likely as it is for them to fail in this moment, it's almost likely for them to figure it out right then and there equally too. I'm probably going to assume in this scenario Jotaro is the one that figures it out and probably says something along the lines of, if your mom told you and the ability started to affect you, don't tell us so the ability starts to affect us. Something along the lines of that. Just kind of give us the vague details of what she said to you, bare minimum enough to where we can figure it out. This shouldn't activate the the ability because there has to be an actual like pursuit in like the thought of actually getting up and going to chase after him. Literally, it's actually stated by Mamazuku and Josuke. So they should be fine, or maybe some type of little calamity activates here, but nothing too wild to where they all get defeated. After, you know, the boys are collected together and they start talking about this, they're probably coming up with a plan and figuring out how Wonder Review works. There is a chance that they just figure out Wonder Review's ability in its entirety, just like how Mamazuku Rai figured out too. He literally fought it once and then kind of went through a test trial, and then all of a sudden he knew everything about it. And since in this scenario there is technically prep time, they could figure out the bare minimums of this stand and its ability, giving the group an advantage here. So with all of that known and prep time aside and thoughts have been gathered, where do you go from here? Well, with the bare minimum clue that it's a doctor, where do doctors hang out? Probably hospitals. Now, with that being said, there'd probably be like a small like to the hospital arc where they're fighting Wonder Review on the way there, and with that it'd probably help them with understanding the stand a bit more, and with Josuke being there probably healing everybody, they would be okay some of the time, but not all the time. I feel like some of them would be like, oh shit, and have some really scary moments. I think the group would make it there intact. They would also probably figure out that Okuyasu really shouldn't be doing anything of the sort. For obvious reasons, he is not the brightest individual and probably has the most deadliest stand out of all of them that could probably lead to some hijinks. In a optimal scenario, Okuyasu is literally acting perfectly fine and doing nothing stupid, which I think is possible if we give him the benefit of the doubt. Or at bare minimum, Koichi and Josuke are playing babysitter with Okuyasu, which I think is probably what's most likely going to happen, unironically. Which is good because he will be needed later, spoilers. So how is the hospital fight going to play out? Well, personally, I think this is going to be the last fight they have with Toru. My reasoning is just like Kira, they have to play to his cards, meaning they have to chase him, but not literally chase. Hell, even by now, I think probably at least one of them, it could probably be even Okuyasu that even thinks of this, like make Wonder Review and or Toru, but at this time they don't know it's Toru, chase them. Now that's on the assumption that Toru even wants to come to them. Would he? Probably. My reasoning here is that since Toru in this timeline wants to wipe them out, kind of coming face to face with them, or just, you know, Wonder Review getting close to them actually makes sense here. Now, in a actual power scaling way to say this to you guys, Toru should clap. Bar none, easy win here. But this is an optimal scenario, so how can they actually win here? Well, just like Kyo and her part in the ending of JoJolion, you have to take a noble sacrifice for the team. I genuinely, and I'm being very truthful here, think at least somebody is dying. I don't think it's Rohan because he's too greedy. Okuyasu is probably in the background because everybody told him not to use his ability. I don't think Josuke is gonna do it. I just have a feeling he just wouldn't jump into it, even though he is very kind-hearted. I think Koichi might, but I'm looking at Jotaro and I'm just seeing the mentor role just stick out like crazy for him. I genuinely think that Jotaro would try to pull off something, test something out for the betterment of the team. Jotaro would probably maybe pull a Kato with no intent of actually chasing Toru down and kind of symbolizing he's just in his way, so he's just trying to move him out the way. But of course, we know that Kato actually at the very end had the intent to hurt him, so she actually got hurt. So maybe there's something along the lines of that. Jotaro actually gets hit. Not to mention the fact like the big collision that happens when somebody sees Toru probably is going to get solved by either Koichi, the hand, or probably even Josuke if he times it correctly, and Jotaro. So that is not in the way here. I also see Jotaro probably throwing something at Toru. For whatever reason, even fans have come up with this. Technically, objects don't have wills of their own. So if you were to throw a baseball, a rock, a stop sign even at Toru, it technically should hit him. Technically, Wonder Review, there is a scene of this, I'm exactly remembering this correctly, is that he had to block debris hitting him. So technically that means he has to, at least when it comes to regular objects, has to, you know, defend himself. So technically it should work. Throwing a object at near faster than light speeds, thanks to probably, you know, Jotaro himself, it should hit. And if Toru were to die from it, technically Okuyasu is there to finish off the calamity energy that is left over after the death of Toru. Now, thanks to multiverse theory, there is probably a number of ways the Morioh crew can win this fight, but there's also a number of times within this what if alone, and probably an infinite number of timelines, where Toru absolutely destroyed them. The amount of times I had to make the executive decision to say, okay, we'll give him some grace here, we'll give him a bit of luck, is kind of crazy. It just kind of shows you that Wonder Review is dumb broken. I even thought of a funny scenario where technically Toru could make fun of Josuke's hair, and then Josuke is so blinded by rage, just like in the Rohan fight, where he doesn't see the manuscript that Rohan has for Heaven's Door, and he absolutely just destroys Toru because he's so blinded by rage. He doesn't actually have the will to actually chase him down. It's just blind ignorance and rage. It actually takes him out. It's possible, but it's too much of a joke scenario to actually take seriously. Anyway, that's going to be the end of the video. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, stay hydrated. See you in the next one, ladies and gentlemen.